Test, test, test. Don't see your video yet, Chris. There you are.
There we go.
How's your
How's it
life,
going?
man?
Oh, not too bad.
So, um, yeah, I don't think I've told you anything at all yet about manalizing, have I?
Not too much. You gave me the link to the podcast, and I listened to a few episodes.
Yeah. Which ones did you do?
You know, I can't think of which ones they were right off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. So manalizing is a podcast for and about men. The idea is that, to start off with, men have a suicide rate that's much higher than women. It's about 4 times. And
Right.
the reason for it is because when women have got a problem, they've got 30 girlfriends to go talk to.
Yeah.
And when men have a problem, we have nobody. So that
Right.
tends to kind of get in the way, and we tend to shove stuff down, and we become trash compactors, and then we blow up, and that's hard on marriages, and it's hard on doors and walls, and it's hard on everything and everybody. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I just like to go through the tough stuff in your life and talk about how well you did or did not handle it. And basically, let guys know that hard is common and that nobody's alone.
Yeah.
So, you have any questions before we get started?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay, so Chris, it's Rexwell, right?
Yep. Middle name Rexwell
Rexwell. What's your last name?
Adams.
Adams. Chris Adams. Here's what I know about you thus far. You're in a
Mhm.
Facebook men's rights group, and you got
Right.
a
Right.
beard,
Yes.
and and that's about everything I know about you right now. Tell me a little bit about you. What's your favorite thing to do?
So lately, I just had my son for the first time in 8 months last week. So that was the pinnacle of my year so far.
For the first time in 8 months. So you basically
Yes.
haven't had him at all this year. A couple
Aside
of months
from
in.
two separate occasions that ended terribly.
Oh, uh, yeah. Well, let's go down that road. Let's talk about ended terribly.
Yeah. So my ex and I had split in the tail end of January,
Uh huh.
and she had taken my son and refused to recognize equal custody
Uh huh.
and wouldn't let me have my son at all.
Did the court
And
give
then
you equal custody?
they just did,
They just
just
barely did.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. Before then, it
Um,
was kind of loosey goosey. No, nobody was dictating anything.
right, right. I mean, it was, we had both actually filed on the same day against each other. And back in February, we didn't have a court hearing until May, and we didn't get our ruling until September 21st.
Dang. And all this time, she kept the kid away from you. Does she live anywhere near you?
She lives across town. It's about a 20-minute drive.
Not too far. Not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. People in California would tell you that's across the street.
Right, right, yeah.
Where do you live, by the way? What state?
uh, Up in Alaska.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Like Anchorage, Juneau.
Yeah, Anchorage.
Okay. I've never been up there. I hear that mosquitoes are your state bird.
They are. They are. This summer they weren't too bad, but I mean it's a beautiful, beautiful state to live in.
I bet, especially during the summer when you get just a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah, yeah. Here in Anchorage, we typically get between 18 to 20 hours of sunlight in the summertime.
Yeah. Yeah. And then during the winter, it's like 1 hour of sunshine, I guess, at the
Right, right.
worst.
Yeah, yeah. The exact opposite.
Yeah. I don't think I'm man enough to live there, dude.
Yeah, yeah. It can be tough, especially in the winter times with all the dark. But keep ourselves busy up here.
Yeah. Um, but have you always lived in Alaska?
Yeah, born and raised. Yeah, my whole life right here in Anchorage.
I watch those TV shows about fishing for crab or whatever, and I'm thinking, man,
Oh, I know there's a dozen of them now.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, all those freezing waves coming across. I don't care if I'm wearing a raincoat or not, man. That just doesn't sound pleasant.
Oh, definitely not. No.
So what do you do?
I work for a fire protection company,
Uh huh.
so I've kind of bounced around within uh, that company. I started out doing dispatch and moved into the field doing inspections, and now I work in the purchasing department.
Well, that's a lot more cozy than being out on a boat in the middle of Arctic land.
Right, right. I mean, we definitely we travel all across the state. Winter, summer, rain, snow. So our
So
technicians definitely see quite a bit.
you're in those bush plains and in the middle of the -30 then. How cold does it get in
Yeah,
Alaska
yeah,
during the
yeah.
winter?
Depends on where you're at. Here in Anchorage, the coldest it'll get is usually maybe -20 in January, February. But up in places like Fairbanks, you can get as low as -70.
That's that's cold. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Here where I am, it gets down to -5 when it gets really ugly. And I think pretty much below anything below 20 above is too cold for me.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty daunting in the wintertime.
Yeah. And you stay there because you said it's beautiful. I bet it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I had my first child really early on, just out of high school, and that kind of kept me here. And uh, you know, after a certain amount of time, you just kind of stay here.
Yeah,
I've been to other states, and just nothing compares to the beauty of Alaska.
I bet. Yeah, that's I have friends that go there on cruises and whatever, and beautiful is always the word they use when they describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, you said first kid. How many kids have you got?
Two. I've got a daughter. She's a teenager now, and then my son, who he's 3.
Different moms.
Yep, yep, different moms.
So your daughter, the older one, the teenager, she's yours. You get to see her. Sounds like quite a bit more often. Does she stay with you?
Yeah, usually on weekends. I live about 50 miles away from her mother, so I usually, I'll get her on weekends and go out and have dinner with her and everything.
Uh-huh.
But we have a pretty good, co-parenting relationship now.
That's good. And it doesn't sound like you have
Yeah,
nearly as good a co-parent relationship with number dose.
no, definitely not.
Yeah. Um, what are what are the failures? So there was a moment when I was about to do a divorce, and I went to the only place that I could think of. I wasn't going to talk to any friends of mine about it because I didn't know what they would think, and it was just too personal. So I went to the
Mm.
source of all knowledge. I played internet spades at the time, and I asked one of my internet spades friends about how to do a divorce. And she basically said, as long as you don't turn your kids into pawns, you'll be great. And I was like, oh, I'll be great. And then she turned the kids into pawns.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I'll ask you that same question. If your co-parenting relationship with wife number uno is good, and with number two is not, what's the difference? You and her.
We just have completely separate ideologies.
Talk to me
I
about that.
I've always, since before we even split up, the best interest of my son was always at heart.
Uh-huh.
And with her, she seems to use him, like you had said, as a pawn,
Right.
or an accessory,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah.
and you know,
As a weapon.
there's, yeah, yeah,
You don't give me everything I want, then you'll not see the kid.
right, right, yeah.
Um, and how long has that been going on? Probably since the split.
Yep, yep. We're going 9 months strong now. Very high conflict.
Yeah. What do you think that's doing to the kid?
He's struggling. Um, the first week I had him, he was having a hard time adjusting and getting used to my own routine um, compared to his mother's. And the very first night I had him, he was whispering to me, "Mommy doesn't like you."
That's helpful. Yeah, that
And right, right. And so I just sat him down and I said, that's okay, but I like your mom, you know,
you said
because I don't think
I don't like your mom, or
he
I
should be
like.
putting that. I do. I told him I do like your mom because I don't think he's not equipped to handle that type of tumultuous you know
Right.
relationship.
Well, and what I was told by my lawyer is if one parent tells or indicates in any way that the other parent is bad, then the kid is going to go, well, that means I'm half bad.
Mhm.
And if they're both screaming at each other, telling each other that they're both broken, then the kid goes, well, I'm 100% bad.
Right, right.
And that's not a good place to put a kid in.
No, not at all.
So how did it go when so you at some point you got 50% custody in court, and did she follow the rules at that point?
To a degree, she had insisted on multiple calls per day when he was in my care. And when I refused, I told her maybe once at night while he gets adjusted to this new schedule. She said, "If you don't agree to this, you're not going to have him."
Yeah,
And I said,
there's the
"Well,
weaponizing again.
yeah, yeah,
So that sounds to me like something that uh, a person ought to work out, with lawyers or a mediator present, is how many phone calls
mhm,
per day are there going to be? Um,
right, right,
I know that my ex weaponized my kids. The first thing they would do is they'd come over, and for me, I was my liability to my ex-wife for a number of months was greater than my total income,
oh
and
yeah,
so I was living on credit cards, and so if I bought at the time a digital camera, which at that time was a big deal, $100. Uh,
mhm,
it was not 3 minutes later that she was on the computer telling my ex-wife, "Dad bought this." Another way of weaponizing the children.
right,
Uh, yeah, that sounds to me like, for the 10,000 or two dads that are listening to us, that's an item to talk about with the baby mama, ex-spouse, whatever.
mhm, oh yeah,
And it's kind of difficult for the dude. We're not programmed to talk. And for me, calling up my daughters and talking about randomness wasn't
mhm,
going to happen. Because that's not how us dudes operate. We don't just call somebody up to talk about, how's your day. At least I'm
right,
not. We're going to call up because we got a reason to talk. We say that thing and then we hang up.
Yep, yep, definitely.
Whereas a woman is going to call the child and say, you know, how's your day? You know, did you pick your nose today? Whatever it is.
Mm.
Um, but then, yeah, if she's calling multiple times per day, you can't do anything. So,
Right, right.
yeah, what did that do to you when she's playing that game?
You know, I've really adapted to it at this point, and
Uh,
now that I've got the court order to back me, you know, I've actually got some teeth to tell her, you know, no, that's not going to happen. You know, as
right.
before, if I disagreed, you know, she would use seeing
Your internet
and you
connection,
know,
your
well, if you're not going to do this, you know, you're not going to see child.
yeah, I lost you there for a minute. If you do this,
No.
then what again? Looks like your internet signal is a little bouncy.
Oh yeah. Let me see here. So before we had this court order, she would tell me, you know, if you don't do this or that, or you know, if I don't like this, you know, you're not going to see your son, or you know, you're not going to be able to spend time with him. So now that we have this court order, you know, it's given me a chance to, you know, kind of push back on that.
Right. What was a difficult moment during either of the two divorces? And most importantly, what did it do to your guts? Or, you know, what was your emotional response to it?
You know, with my most recent ex, it was just the difficult thing was, you know, being alone, coming home to an empty house. You know, I'd spent, you know, the better part of a decade
Uh-huh.
committed to my family. So, you know, friends have grown up, they got their own families. And so, you know, just kind of ended up being stuck at home with nothing to do, you know, alone with my thoughts. And
Yeah,
so that was
and
the difficult part. But
it was
go ahead.
probably winter in Alaska and dark all that time, is my guess. Yeah. Uh,
Right, right. Yeah.
so yeah, I'm going to paint the picture as I'm seeing it now because I've been there. You know, I went from being in a house with three noisy kids and noise going everywhere and TVs and Xboxes and bouncing and chattering to a basement apartment and no noise. And I'd turn the TV or the radio on and it just didn't make up for the fact that there was nobody there but me. That silence was
Right.
torture. I would have just assumed been waterboarded. Is that
Oh,
what it
yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for quite a while, that's how it felt, you know, and, but throughout all this, I've really reconnected with a lot of my extended family, and they've been supporting me. So I've had that, you know, as an outlet, which has been nice.
I bet that is nice. Yeah, and for me, um, I you mentioned that you know your friends have a life now; they've got their own families, and what I heard you say is I couldn't go to them because they've got their own lives going. So, did you at that time have somebody to go to break the silence?
Not really. You know, I've had a couple friends that I can talk to about certain things, but you know, really, you know, just kind of keep to myself with a lot of, you know, the nitty gritty details. And,
Yeah.
you know, give like status updates, but I won't really divulge a lot of information.
Yeah, that's because we're programmed to do exactly that. And you know, your wife probably has 30 girlfriends to go talk to and tell every one of them individually what a poop head you are.
Right, right.
And you got nobody. And you're the
Yeah,
one in the silent apartment. Uh
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not fun and it's hard on you.
No.
I was actually warned by somebody, my brother-in-law, who'd previously been through a divorce. He says, you better remember what it was like because the living alone is going to be so bad that just that alone is going to motivate you to want to go back.
Mm, yeah.
Um, what did that do to your head? What were the things your demons were telling you while you were sitting there alone in your apartment?
There was definitely quite a few times where, I would think, maybe I should reach out and maybe we can try to work this out and, go back to the way things were because, it was comfortable, it's what I knew.
The devil,
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it was the entire relationship was just toxic,
uh-huh.
you know. But again, it was, at that time, it still seemed like it would be better than being home by myself.
Yeah, you kind of have to choose between a toxic relationship where you're living in the same house versus a toxic relationship where you're not. Um,
Right.
why did you choose what you chose? What was the difference between the toxicness?
It was just the overwhelming sense of freedom. You
Uh-huh.
know, uh, I distinctly remember it was about a week after we separated. I'd gotten off work. It was a tough day at work, and I decided, I'm going to stop in by the bar on the way home and just grab a drink. You know, and had I done that when we were together, I wouldn't hear the end of it. But I enjoyed my beer and went home and just felt great to be able to make those choices and not have to have any repercussions from them.
Yeah. Um, let's say that I'm going to hand you Robin Williams, and he's a genie, and he's going to give you one wish, and it has to be about the ex-wife, and it will hopefully make her a tolerable spouse again. Um, what are you going to wish for her?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Um, Really, it would just be to be more understanding and communicative. You know,
And
it's
in
very
what way?
much. It was very much so like her way or the highway.
Uh-huh.
Um, Everything that I'd done, it had to be for her, and it would have been nice, to have equal give and take.
Right. So she sounded like a control freak.
Yes.
Why do you think? And I've got experience being married
Mm.
to a control freak. Um, what do you think was going on in her head? Why did she need so desperately to control you? What was in it for her?
I could speculate that to the day I die, but really, I honestly think it's rooted in her family. You know,
Okay.
the way that she was raised. I believe her mother is very much the same way, and so are her sisters, and they seem to seek out men that will do whatever they want.
Okay. But you didn't say I'm going to wish for her to not be a control freak. You said I wish that she would be more communicative. And what did you say? Agreeable too? What was that? Was that the other word?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe not being communicative and not being agreeable is her way of controlling. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
And you got
Yeah.
out
That's
from
a
under
that's a
that
fair
thumb,
assessment.
and that is why you felt freedom, is because now there's nobody
Hmm.
giving you grief for being 5 minutes longer than your usual commute. Yeah,
Right. Right.
I get that. My present wife, says told me that when she unloaded her ex and he was walking away, she just felt relief, like a burden was being taken off her shoulders.
Hmm.
And again, in her case, that was a control thing that she was getting out from under. Um, so, what what are you looking for from the next wife? What based on your experience, what are you looking for?
I would probably go for somebody that's independent, self-sufficient, knows what they want, and respects boundaries.
What kind of boundaries?
Just basic boundaries of privacy and um, personal freedoms. You know,
Uh, so basically, if
uh,
you want to stop at the bar and get a drink, she's going to respect that you're an adult and you can choose to do that and stay there for a half
right,
hour
right,
if you want to.
yeah.
Okay. What is that something that you learned about what you need based on the fact that the previous wives didn't do that, I guess? You said a self-contained woman, somebody who knows who she is and is independent. Were
Mhm.
your either of your previous wives not independent? Is that why that's important to you?
Yeah. So, my other baby mother, we were together in high school, so we never really had a chance to have a meaningful relationship.
Uh,
But with my current ex, yeah, it was just it was just kind of something that I didn't realize how bad it was until uh, I was out of it.
yeah, maybe the ex was insecure, so because of that, she needed you around all the time. That maybe
Hmm.
that's I'm guessing that's why you mentioned that you needed somebody who is secure um, in
Right.
herself. Is that a fair statement? Did I get that one wrong?
No, no, I think you hit it right on the base. The past 5 years, I'd you know been working every day, been the sole provider for the last 3 years, and it was really takes a toll out, after a while.
What what's your lowest moment in the last decade?
Um, Lowest moment was probably this, custody fight and having my son taken away, and you know, not being able to have that relationship that I'd had, the past 3 years of his life.
Right. And then that lowest moment continued for 8 months. Is that right?
Right. Yep.
That's a lot of low moments. You go from being a dad, somebody you love, you have a meaning and a purpose, and then you just got dead air.
Hmm.
What did that feel like?
Just awful. You don't know what to do with yourself. You don't, you know how to interact really. Uh, it's easy to, to say, oh, go out and meet people, go do this, but oftentimes I found I had no motivation to do anything.
Yeah. Couldn't stand being with yourself and couldn't stand going out and meeting anybody.
Right, right.
I get that. Um, I found that I couldn't really turn to the friends that I'd had because they were couple friends and they were friends of
Hmm.
both of us, and I didn't know whose side they would take. So all of my friends were off limits. They were
Hmm.
past tense friends. Even a guy that had been my friend since second grade, um, I didn't even know if I trusted him and his wife to remain on my side because she was a very red personality. She is her own decision maker, kind of very controlling.
Hmm.
And I didn't even know if I could rely on them to give me any backup. I knew my buddy would if he was alone, but he salutes her. So I had nobody. And
Yeah.
you go from the couples world to a singles world where you just don't have friends. And even if you did, who wants to cry on one of your friends' shoulder? That's not what we do.
Right. Yeah.
So how'd you handle it?
Uh, I just tried to focus on myself for most of the time. I started, you know, eating healthier, taking my dog out and whatnot, and trying to keep myself busy. Um, and yeah, it was just. But even then, it's trying to get that motivation to do so.
Uh-huh.
Just for the longest time, it just wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. So what do you do? Do you just cocoon in the apartment for days on end?
Yeah, months. I'd go to work, come home, have a couple drinks, go to bed, rinse and repeat.
That's fun. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you enjoyed that. And a lot of depression, I'm sure. I what variety of drinks did you do?
Usually, just the pre-mixed drinks, or I'll get like a six pack, here and there.
Uh,
Um, just something to take the edge off and get comfortable.
yeah. I'm thinking that's called being a zombie.
Right.
Rinse and repeat. So what got you out of it?
Just focusing on myself. You know, trying to find things to keep myself occupied, finding hobbies, and getting out and doing things.
What kind of hobbies did you do?
Right now, um, I've been kind of doing a lot of housework, and I had started to take care of my grandparents' lawn because they're getting older, and that's something that they used to. My grandfather, in particular, used to take a lot of pride in his, the way his house looked.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the summer, I was over there mowing every weekend, edging the lawn, painting the trim.
I got you out.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking it was probably a blessing to you that he was there and he was close and he had a lawn that you needed to do maintenance on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's something that it gave me something to take pride in.
Uh-huh. Because at that point you really had nothing to take pride in.
Mhm.
There was no family to take pride in or to pour yourself into.
Right, right.
There was nothing. And the job was the job. I mean, unless you're an NBA star, the job is just something you got to grind through, and it's
Mhm.
not necessarily entertaining, but it's a way to pay the bills.
Right, right.
uh yeah, something to make you proud of, and service. I think you
Mhm.
actually hit on something there. You were a zombie for 8 months and you got out. I'm going to say at least partly because you found somebody to do good things for.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there might be a lesson in there somewhere. I'm not sure what it is.
Right.
So during that lowest moment, you said that lowest moment lasted for months because you were just
Mhm.
alone. And you
Yeah.
are only weeks out of that lowest moment because only 2 weeks ago you got 50% custody of your child, right?
Right, right.
You were a zombie just a few days ago still. Uh
Yeah, yeah, and even still, after the handoff last Sunday, I found myself come back, starting to fall into that same routine. It's like, what am I going to do now?
mhm. Yeah, how does that feel? Is that a lonely feeling? Is it a depressed feeling? Is it an empty island sort of a feeling? What does that feel like?
Yeah, I'd say it's more of like a depressed feeling. You know, I'd just sat down and looked at all the toys and everything that were strewn about, and 10 minutes after dropping my son off, I was already missing him.
Oh yeah, you got those toys. Did you what did you do? Did you leave him there just to prove that he was there for a minute, or did you clean him
Yeah,
up and leave?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It took me about 3 days to really get everything cleaned up. And you hit on it right there. I just said the same thing to mom. That I said I don't want to clean this up because it's proof that he was here.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't have your son, at least you can have the echoes.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, in a weird way, it's kind of like having a son die and then the parents never change the room for the next 100 years.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, you want to retain what you can. And so you get them back next week?
Yep. We our handoffs are in the evenings every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Okay, so you are just barely out of your lowest moment.
Mhm.
Uh, Matter of days, and then you're kind of sort of back into it for this week.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an interesting question because you're kind of still in your lowest moment. But if your lowest moment was your son being gone, how was that a benefit and a blessing for you?
It really gave me a chance to, you know, find myself again. Start thinking for myself and doing things that I want and doing things that I want, for my family, my son and my daughter. Um, yeah.
You What's the difference between the Chris? I'm going to divide your life into three segments. The one where you were married to the ex and you were saluting her and being controlled by. The next one for the 8 month period where you were living all alone in an empty, isolated cave of darkness.
Mm.
Uh, and the third phase of your life, which was last week.
Yeah.
Not a very long phase of your life at this point. Um,
Right. Right.
what's the difference? Let's talk about first the difference between phase one Chris and phase two Chris. What's the difference between those two dudes?
Uh, phase one, it was, you know, I didn't really get a chance to, think for myself. Everything I was doing was for my ex and, maintaining, a home and family and, just working day in, day out. Not really having a chance to connect with friends or do things, that I like. And,
That is its own form of zombie mode, isn't it?
right. Yeah. Yeah. And then phase two, it was kind of like a punch to the gut, having, you know, the family that I'd been trying to build up, ripped away and being alone. But, it also gave me a chance to really focus on myself for the first time.
Yeah. And now phase three mode. Who is this Chris that is different than phase one and two?
I'm really more myself now than I have been in the last decade. I'm really enjoying things that I hadn't enjoyed in years and doing things, that make me happy.
Do you now do them with your son?
Oh yeah, yeah, we had a lot of fun.
And what are those things?
I we went to the park. We went to the arcades and just got out and enjoyed the beauty of Alaska
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and
I went to Costa Rica once, and I'm from Utah, and we decided that we were going to do horses.
mm,
So we ordered the horses and showed up, and and they we showed up in beach gear, shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt. And
oh yeah.
we didn't know that you can't do that on horses. They
Hmm.
said a couple of times, they said, well, we thought that because you were from Utah that you ride horses every day. And one of us had spent some time on horses. The rest of us
Hmm.
knew what a horse was, and that was about the extent of it.
Oh yeah.
You and now I don't even remember where I was going to go with that, but oh yeah, I do. You live in Alaska. I am going to
Mhm.
assume that you're an outdoors type of person. Is that true?
No, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So you take him outdoors,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what you enjoy. And I'm gonna guess that he enjoys it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like pulling teeth to get back inside at the end of the day.
That's awesome. It has to be rewarding to know that the things that you enjoy, he enjoys, and you can bond that way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Does the ex wife do the same? Does she take him out, or is that not a thing?
I'm not too sure. She's
Did she?
been very, yeah, secretive. You know,
Uh huh.
uh, he mentions going to the parks, from time to time, but
Uh huh.
she's really when we were together, she was very much so like a homebody. She would, just like to be at home. So I assume, it's probably the same type of
Yeah. It's
atmosphere he's in.
not going to be different. Yeah, I think of Alaska and I think of moose walking down the street.
Oh yeah.
That or you said you're in Anchorage, right?
Mm.
Yeah. You ever get that sort of thing happen?
Yeah, yeah. The moose, uh, they aren't in the city too often. Not as much in the summertime as they are in the winter. But the area that I live in, we get quite a bit of black bears that run through the neighborhoods.
And do you duck and run for cover or just wave at the bear as you're walking past?
Usually just kind of wave at the bear, yell. They're fairly smaller compared to like brown bears, so they're just kind of more like rabid dogs.
Uh huh. So there's black bear, brown bear, and grizzly bear, and the grizzlies you don't
Mm.
mess with the
Yeah, yeah,
black bear are just smaller, and so you just kind of act aggressive with them. Um,
yeah. They're more often to run away from you, than face you and fight you.
where the brown bear, you got to respect them a little more.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to that dark moment for you. You know, being alone. I want to hit that question again.
Mm.
How has that taught you to be a better dad and a happier person?
It forced me to, you know, really analyze my life and what was important to me, and uh, you know, make me look at what I want moving forward. I could either choose to get sucked into that feeling and not get out of it, or you know use that opportunity to look inside myself and see what I want, and rise out of it.
Yeah. So let's do a time machine.
Mhm.
You get you get a DeLorean, and this is a Back to the Future reference, by the way.
Yes.
And you get to set that thing to go back to any time you want, where you can go back to visit you and give you advice. What date and time are you going to go to, and what advice are you going to give?
That's a good one. There's plenty of times I could go back and give myself
Well,
much
let's
needed
pick two
advice,
then.
especially
Let's
my.
pick a couple of them.
Well, I'd probably go, to my early 20s and tell myself, use this time to expand your horizons. Don't party so much. Don't waste these years of your life away. You know, get a degree in something, or find something that you can excel in. Uh, because most of my early 20s, I like to call them my roaring 20s, because I did lots of partying back then,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't really use that time as effective as I could have, which sent me back a few years.
Right. Okay. That's one of the times. What other time are you going to stop at with the DeLorean?
Um, I would probably go back to um, hmm, probably at the beginning of my last relationship,
Hmm.
and tell myself, you know, follow your heart. Do do what you think is best.
Okay. In my case, I realized that things were not to my liking when I ended my first marriage. Um, she had some daddy issues. She liked to think that she was punishing her daddy when she was punishing me. Um, so that was her motivation to keep the punishment coming when I had no idea why or what her motivations were or what it was
Yeah.
for. I just figured she enjoyed it. Um, but for all the stuff that was going on, I realized that there was never a single moment when I gave her the opportunity where I never said, look, X, Y, and Z is happening and I don't like it. And we've got some choices. Either you can put an end to that or I've got a choice to make. I never gave her that option.
Mhm.
Did you ever have that moment with your ex?
Um, yeah, I would say so. Um, Probably not when we were together,
Mm-hmm.
but once I was on my own, I had that freedom again to stand up for myself and know, tell her no, it's not going to be this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can identify with that because I similarly lacked the spine, the freedom
Hmm.
to say, look, this is what I need it to be. I just left because I was
Yeah.
spineless. Um, and so yeah, you get away from her and your spine suddenly grows, and then you can have that conversation. At that point, it's less effective, but at least you had it. I never
Right.
did. I never
Oh
did.
yeah.
So, um, what am I missing? That you mentioned, we've already been down the road of the hardest point in your life.
Hmm.
What am I not dragging out of you as we talk? What else? What was your motivations for coming onto this podcast?
Uh, you know, um, when I was in that lowest part of my life, nobody turned to, nobody talked to. You know, I just happened to, search, different, fathers groups and, just looking for advice and, you know, here this whole time I'm thinking that, this is a unique thing that I'm experiencing. And it wasn't until I joined these groups that I realized, this is uh, very common, the way you feel, the way, your ex treats you, the hardships that you're enduring.
Yeah, yeah. We all think that our condition is unique,
Mm,
and sounds like your and my condition were very similar. And I'm
yeah.
sure we're not the only two. Uh, there's not that many different ways for a spouse of either a male or a female variety to turn into Satan, but being controlling is certainly on the short list.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even still, she's trying to maintain that control. We're 2 weeks into this court order, and she's already had her attorney put in a motion for reconsideration, trying to strip me from the equal custody I have.
I'm going to say that's pretty awesome that you got equal custody in Utah.
Yeah.
I was told that even though courts are theoretically neutral, the
Mhm.
woman always gets the 80%, and the man is stripped down to once a week at night and every other weekend.
Right.
Um, I'm glad for you that you got 50% custody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's awesome. And it turned out badly for the ex-wife because once the kids turned 18, they were no longer my financial responsibility. She had set that
Hmm.
up, and I held her to it.
Oh
And
yeah.
where if she had gone, for example, 50-50, it wouldn't have mattered to me whether they were 18 or not. I would have provided half of their support.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, she fought hard for keeping my minutes to a minimum. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, if that's the game we're playing, then that's the game we're playing. You'll get what you get, and I'll get what I get, and my liabilities will be exactly what the law says they are.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, I'm I'm unpleasant that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about how I am with her now.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, you've got. Do you have a business you want to plug, or any last words you'd like to throw in there? Uh, what have you learned? What's eating at you that you'd like to tell the 10 million people that are watching you right now?
You know, really, I would like to say, if you're going through a similar battle or any type of battle, for your children, just don't give up. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It might be hard to see at the moment, but if you keep at it, you'll get there.
That's good advice. Thanks, Chris. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
cut it there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good of you to do that. What would you have been doing if we hadn't have been yammering?
Probably would have ran and grabbed a six pack and just kick back.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to spend a night.
Yeah, yeah. And, not very productive, but
Have you
at least.
developed any friends, single friends you can hang with during this time?
Yeah, a few of them. I actually have reconnected with quite a few friends. Now that I'm out of this relationship, so it's pretty nice to rekindle those friendships and try to make plans. In the future.
Yeah. So the question I'm sure you have is when do you see this online? Here's my
Hmm.
process, and it's kind of involved. I'm going to take this video and send it to one YouTube channel where only my employee sees it. She's going to go
Yes.
through and she's going to give me cuts and highlights. Then then I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the cuts. I'm going to take the highlights, put those in another place, and then I'm going to take the video and send it up to another YouTube channel. The highlights are going to be however many there are. They're going to be promoted on Instagram, and then the video will be stripped of the audio, and then the audio will be sent to my manalizing channel. So there's a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't be surprised if it takes maybe a couple of months for me to get all of that done. But I
Oh,
think
sure thing.
what I'll do is I'll let you know when it's ready, because I'll put it on the Father's Rights page
Hmm.
and just say here's my interview with one of our own, and then I'll tag you. Um,
Right on. Yeah.
and at that point, you can maybe take that post and tag it to whoever you want to see that. Do you do Facebook or Instagram or none of the above?
Yeah, yeah. Facebook and Instagram. Here and there. I'm not as involved as I used to be, but I definitely have them.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to be less involved. I've kind of petered away from Facebook, and I'm just barely starting to figure out Instagram. It's a pain in the butt.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. All right, man. Any other questions you got for me?
No, nothing I can really think of. I definitely appreciate you having me on. It's nice to realize that there's people out there to talk to.
Yeah. What was my best question?
I would say probably the time machine one. You know, it really had me thinking.
Uh-huh. Yeah, good. Yeah, I feel like my most impossible question and the one that yields the best answers is how was your most difficult moment a
Mhm.
blessing for you? And you'd be amazed at the
Right.
answers I get out of that.
Yeah. 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 And, you know, it's something you don't really think about until, you know, somebody asks, you know, because I look at that lowest part of my life and, you know, looking at it, you know, it seems, you know, terrible, but, you know, that's where I finally, you know, grew and became myself again.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't mention this story during the regular part of the podcast, but that was my ex-wife's experience or my present wife's experience with her ex-husband.
Mm.
Whenever their friends would come over, her old friends would ask her a question and he would answer it for her.
Oh,
And
really?
and that would happen 2 or 3 times over, and she finally had to say, "I didn't ask you that question." And then and then my wife, Julie, would tell me the story that her friend would call her up the next day and say, "What happened to my friend? I don't even know who
Mm.
you are." And, you know, that's that control
Oh, yeah.
thing, and you lose who you are, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. I've probably tied up more than I should have, but, I'm glad I met you, and, hopefully between you and I, we can help some guys.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you.